prospects. You know, I love doing what I do because the guests that I introduce to you are unique and they carry such great charisma, if I'm saying that right, and just uniqueness. My guest to you this evening is Genadyne Charr. She's a young lady who I met through Courtney Charles, Raptors 905, and she's here to share with you her story, not her business, her story on her life, post-secondary, perseverance, hanging in there. With no further ado, I want to introduce to you Genadyne Charr. Hi, Genadyne.
Hello, how are you, Joy?
Good, sweetie. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me tonight.
Oh my gosh, you are so welcome, hon. I am so glad that when I met you and then I was talking to you and I said to myself, I have to have her on the show. Why? Because you have a fascinating story that can capture and inspire our youth. So I know you, but if you can just introduce yourself, pretty girl, to our viewers.
Well, I mean, Genadyne Charr is my name. From Winnipeg, Manitoba, proudly from Winnipeg. Made my way out here to Ontario, so now residing in Toronto, working in sport. I was a young athlete, played my college days, and then decided, what am I going to do after that? So pursued more education after my business degree and went into sport business management, which then landed me in the sports world. So now I'm here living the dream, I guess you would say, in Toronto. And yeah, that's, I guess, a snapshot of me.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to reel it back. So that's your introduction. So what I'm going to do is give them segment 1, segment 2, segment 3 throughout your story. All right, my love. But thank you for that, pretty girl. So you were born in Manitoba. And what school did you go to?
Oh, the university. I went to a small Christian college. So it's called Providence University College, just outside of the city.
All right. Now, through our pre-interview, you shared a really interesting part, which captured me on changing what you were going for, realizing what you were doing wasn't your fit. And sometimes with young people, they feel so embarrassed and they feel like, oh my God, I can't change stuff, but you can. So if you can just share that component with us, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to think that I would even consider it changing what I wanted to do, because when I look back on it, I actually had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't have the traditional route of wanting to be a doctor or, any field that you'd go to school and have a job after. So then going into university, it was the realm of, okay, I'll pick some intro classes. And those intro classes landed me in, I guess, what would be called just the standard, psychology, sociology classes. And I thought, this is just the route I'll take because I don't know what I'm going to do. And oh my goodness, that was a poor choice, but at the same time, probably the best choice that actually happened to me. It made me really realize that I need to be more intentional with my decisions and start capitalizing on the things that I'm actually good at, which then transitioned into me going into business. And so that's where I landed and ended up finally graduating from university, which is not something that I ever thought I would or be capable of doing. So finding what fit for me was actually such a blessing.
Okay, hon. I'm going to dissect that even more because, like I said, the pre-interview was so, it was just so eye-opening. I hear from so many youths. I speak to them all the time, if it be here on Future Prospect Rogers Television or through my mentoring and presentations. But you said something that you took it and you realized you weren't, if you don't mind me saying, sharing it on the air, Genadyne,
yeah,
that the marks weren't there. They just weren't there. Because I know a lot of young people, the marks aren't there and they feel so stressed. So if you can just share that part,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm giving you these, top line surface answers, but I have no shame in breaking down, what actually happened. And to your point, I think it's so good to actually hear the behind the scenes, because I think a lot of times we don't hear that and we just think, oh, right, they switched their degree, or they, and then you graduate, and then everyone else is at home thinking I'm drowning, I am failing. And yeah, and it's funny, I think what I ended up saying to you before was that I did so bad that it was almost as if I had to try to do as bad as I did. I don't know, like, I feel like I got worse marks just from like not handing in things, or, you know, this fear of failing. So then I did nothing at all. And, you know, I don't know who set the standard for me, because I'll tell you, my parents were never, you know, hard on me on what I wanted to do or anything. So I think it was just me that was being hard on myself. But yeah, absolutely bombed all of my classes. My GPA was so low, and at the time I was playing basketball. And so in order to play basketball, you have to uphold a certain GPA, and I didn't meet that. I was so far off from it. And, you know, there was absolutely that shame, and that's, you know, not trying to tell everybody, you know, oh, I just don't know what I want to take, so I'm just going to take a year off, and like all these stories you kind of tell yourself. But realistically, I failed everything so bad. Yeah, and it was, I mean, looking back on it, I can think, you know, it's okay, I overcame it. But at the time, I really just thought, like, there's nothing else for me. You know, there's nothing that I can, you know, should be taking. And, you know, I was embarrassed to even talk to my professors about how can I, you know, overcome this? How can I get better?
I just jump in there for a second. Thank you for seeing my hands. That's good. Okay. Because sometimes it's really hard on Zoom. Like, you know, you can't be in the student and say, "Ugh," you know what I mean? But, okay. So why were you, how would I say, I'm not going to say intimidated, but why did you feel uncomfortable in speaking to your professors about it? Like, why? Why did you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to feel successful and be proud of what they put forward. And I'm, you know, innately passionate. So anything I do put out into the world is just so rooted in who I am, that if I put it out there, there's room to, you know, have judgment, whether it's positive, negative, whatever it may be. There's always going to be some sort of reaction. So it was hard for me to be able to put myself forward, ask for help, you know, admit the fact that I was failing. It was just, yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like being seen as somebody. I'm just so type A, and I was always that, you know, kid in high school that was on every club and did everything. And so to have to admit that I actually needed help or some form of direction was not my favorite time in life.
Okay. All right. Reeling it back a little bit more now. So you were in university, you were in a program or a semester and classes that just wasn't for you. You thought it was, but it wasn't for you. You felt like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. But reeling it back, going into university now, making your choices, who was your decision making at the time? Now we have guidance counselors, right? We have people that help you. And that was part of our pre-interview. So how was that like? And you were saying that you, in your own words, if you can share that with the viewers for me.
I mean, at the time I was closer with my athletic director and my head coach of the basketball team. They were really supportive, but I found that I was the one that was really kind of having to dig into these courses. There was a lot of cookie cutter. These are the courses you should take. This is where you should land in order to get by. But you don't realize that there's a lot of actual behind the scenes work, which is you sitting down, studying. And so I did have some great, I guess you would say, mentors and guidance counselors in my life that were there to support me. But it was kind of me that had to take a look at those courses and do a good old pros and cons list of what am I good at? What do I actually want to achieve? And that's how I ended up finding business.
Okay. So what actually made you look at the business side? What opened up your eyes and go, okay, I'm going to change this? What made you how did that happen?
It was definitely my gap year. It was the year after I went to school. I took a year off afterwards. I guess forced to take a year off. I don't know.
Forced?
I guess it wasn't my choice. Because my GPA was so bad that I had.
Oh, okay. All right.
So in that year, I actually, started taking on jobs. So I was working in retail, but at the same time, I was working as a executive assistant within a financial realm. And so there's just so many voices that were showing me different aspects of types of jobs out there. And none of them really flagged me as this is the job I want to go into, but I
Right.
did know that all of them had a skill set, and knowing that taking a business program would have that diverse ability to finish with something else. So it was definitely my year off, and the job, I guess, all the jobs that I was able to take on in that time that showed me what I wanted to do.
Okay, and how did you feel when you were going to class and you were enjoying it? All of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not getting this kind of marks. I'm getting this kind of marks. How did that make you feel? Like, okay, it's all right what I did. Like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah, that realization of your success is just not rooted in what other people are doing. It's solely
yes,
yourself. It's
yes.
the goals that you set for yourself, the intention that you put towards things. There's just so many other ways to measure it, and the biggest realization of it's not anybody else's story, it's mine. And I'll be honest, don't get too excited. It's not like my grades soared once I was in business. I did well enough to actually graduate, so I know I did okay, but it's not like I became a genius. I just started applying myself, and that application started to create a sense of pride in myself. So that
Okay, let me jump in there. We only got a minute. I'm looking at don't get me wrong. We're Zoom here, guys. So I'm looking at the clock and I'm looking at you. So I'm not being rude. Okay, we've got a minute and a half here. Real quick, I want to jump in. There is nothing wrong with getting the big marks. And I want you just to mention that one more time, because a lot of young people, some do A's, some do B's. But as long as you get that ticket, that golden ticket to move on, if you can just share that in your own words again, because that is so important, Genadyne.
Yeah, I don't think that grades and the mark you get, it doesn't define you. It doesn't
Right.
stamp your approval. At the end of the day, if you want to strive for A's, if that's what you've kind of set for yourself as an achievement, just like how fast you want to run a race, sure. But at the end of the day, we're all going to get there. We're going to get there on our own terms, our own pace. And I walked across that stage. I did something that I never thought I would be able to do because I was basing it on other people's stories.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I did it. I finished, and I haven't looked at my transcript, so it's okay.
That's right, honey. And you're smiling too, sweetheart. And on that note, pretty girl, we're gonna be right back, guys, with Genadyne Charr. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Future Prospects with Genadyne Charr. Genadyne, I can laugh with you. I love your sense of humor. I love you. I love your laughter. Like, you're so real. Like, and then youth can look at this and they can be relatable to it. So you went to school, went to university, changed, took a gap year, realized like this is not happening. And then you went into business. And from there, you did some jobs. But now, how did you find your dream job? Because we're going to be having some pictures rolling through this segment here, I believe, or the next one.
Interesting that you say dream job. I don't know. I feel like I'm a jumper. I have so many goals, and I want to do so many things. So I don't know where that dream job is, but where I've landed is, I knew I wanted to stay in sports. I knew that something to do with, helping others achieve their success was where I wanted to be. And an easy transition for me was into sports. So I don't even know, I'll be honest, looking back on it, I don't know what happened, but I sat down at my computer and I started just Googling, postgraduate studies, and I ended up landing on coming out to Ontario. So I packed up my bags and got into the program at Durham College, where I took sport business management as a postgraduate. And then the rest, I guess, is history. And now I'm working at MLSE and for the Raptors 905.
Holy cow. So hold on a second here. So what age did you just jump on a plane or drove in a car or whatever? What age were you?
I did do the drive, so the 22, 23-hour drive. It was great. It was actually a road trip with my sister. We packed up the whole car and we moved out here. I think that would have been, I would have been 24 at the time.
Wow.
23.
Good for you, honey. Because I hear a lot of young people that want to just do something. I know with myself when I was young, it's no way in heaven I could have done that. West Indian parents, you don't do that kind of stuff. You stay around and you do exactly as they say. I love my parents, but that's how it goes. But you just took a chance and you just went into it and just did it.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say I knew with like a 2-semester situation, I knew I had my bed back home. I kind of had that safety blanket. So that was comforting to know that I could go back home. But ever since I moved out here that first time, it was that I knew I needed to stay, which was wild because I ended up transitioning back after my internship with MLSE back to Winnipeg, and I did 2 seasons in the CFL, the Canadian Football League. And then I had this moment of like, now I'm an adult. It's time to go. I'm being called out to Ontario, and that was the scary one. That was the sell every possession I have nothing left at home, and I am going, and I'm not moving home.
Wow. So were you scared? Okay, share that part with us, because I'm going to take you back a little bit more through that conversation. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. What is wrong in taking chances? What is wrong in just taking a chance or just challenging yourself without looking back?
Yeah, I think it was this moment of writing my own story. This idea of I don't know if I would consider it a risk. Everyone asks me, how did you do it? You just up and left. It didn't feel scary for me at the time at all, because I just felt as if it was my opportunity and I was going to do it. And I would overcome whatever came into my path. And I think that was the first time in my entire life, really, that I didn't really think through the what could go wrong, but I thought more about the what could go right. And it turned out to be the best opportunity because I was so positive about it.
Okay, when you say so positive, how positive were you?
Oh,
like, I'm gonna. Sorry.
Go.
You go.
I mean, I was positive in the fact that I was capable of doing anything, and that was liberating. I'll be honest, I didn't even have a job. I had a job interview. I had no job. And I just thought, whatever it may be, I'm going to do it. And I don't know what it was, but I did it.
Holy cow. That is amazing though, honey. Like I've heard similar stories like that, but this is your story now. So you had no fears about it. You just made it happen and every single thing fell into place. So when it did, when you went from MLSE to the CFL and all those different chance of things, how do I say this now to make sense to the viewers? Networking, connecting, getting on the computer, just taking a chance at things. Can you share that portion of it? Because this is really, really good. I'm talking to a lot of students right now who are dealing with that. They're coming down to the end of the semester. They don't have a job 2 weeks, the end of April, going into reality. Yeah,
I think I was just unapologetically myself. And I think once you own that, and don't get me wrong, I still say things and walk away being like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just say? Or what did I just, but I think once you start owning who you really are and you start you're rooted in those realities, then you start realizing that where you're supposed to be is exactly for you. And if you're starting to play the game of, I heard one time that so-and-so networked with so-and-so, and so I'm going to try that and it didn't work for you. Well, you're playing again, the comparison game. So I think going back to being yourself, being authentically yourself and using the tips and tricks that you hear is important. So for me, to your question, it was I went back to a lot of the relationships that I built. I reached out to people I knew when I was an intern, and I reached out and I said, hey, like, I'm moving there. Do you want to grab coffee? It was this very forward. I wasn't wishy-washy about it. I was forward in, I just want to talk. I want to find out more.
Okay. Okay, this is great. This is really good. I'm saying it really good. why is it important to be forward? Because sometimes we're always so nice. Oh, I don't want to look like those kind of person that's greedy, or those persons always on their emails and asking, I'm just checking in, da, 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 da. Forward. Why is it important to be forward?
Definitely a difference between being forward and being, I guess, expectant. You know, I think when you go into a conversation, you never know how it's going to go.
True.
But if your intention is to just learn and, you know, humble yourself, ask questions, but be intentional about those questions, the person I've always found on the other end is thankful for that, because they don't have to do as much thinking. They get to just respond to what exactly you need to learn, and then you grow within that conversation. So yeah, I would absolutely say, like, don't be expectant to get a job after going for coffee with somebody, but do expect to, you know, if you want to know something about an industry, or, you know, you have specific thoughts, ask those specific thoughts.
Okay, I'm gonna be bold here for a second. Okay, I'm looking at my clock here. Okay, all right. Okay, where was it? Okay? We're just trying to think here for a second. Did you ever ask for a job? I'm the one. I'm the one for this. I can do this. I know I can.
I definitely have. I have done that. I've done that, you know, when I was already working within the organization. So it was never a walk in the door and just say, hey, like, hire me. I mean, I guess I have done that too, but you have to be confident in exactly what you're selling. And I mean, my background is in sales. I truly believe that everybody is always selling. I want to break that stigma of, you know, just the sleazy car sales. Like, it's not like that. But at the end of the day, you have something that you want to share with the rest of the world. And in this case, you're selling yourself. And so if you're not confident in it, why would anybody else want to buy it? So I really think that having that added, like, there's obviously humility and grace that comes along with it, and knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are. But I think that there's no shame in saying, you know, I can do this, and I want to at least work hard enough to prove to you that I can do this.
There is so many young people, and I think I've said that already 4 times, but I'm going to say it because with COVID now, okay, a lot of youth are online, a lot of students are online, and I'm mentoring them right now, Genadyne, and they're in this part of who's going to want me. I can't see them face to face. I don't hear back. How does my future look? The doubt, the mental stress of just dealing with their own identity. And, you know, it's hard. Can you give any feedback on that, my love? Because your spirit is so beautiful. It really is.
I mean, I've definitely had conversations. Some amazing people I've reached out during this time as well, whether they're switching up jobs or, you know, going, whatever the reason is, they want to just chat. And the biggest takeaway that I get is, you know, I always ask, like, well, what are you doing right now to get yourself to where you want to be? And no one ever really seems to have an answer for that. You know, we're so tunnel visioned on this, you know, what the end goal is, but we aren't really picking apart, you know, what you're doing in the meantime, because we've been kind of taught at school and wherever it is that, you know, if you do this, then you'll get that. But I think there's so much more to just doing things that, like, fuel you as an individual, that are going to add to your story, whether it's dog walking, or, you know, starting your own website, or, you know, spending the next few months going on people's podcasts, whatever it may be. When you look back in a year from now, what have you done to get yourself ready for that next interview? And I always ask, you know, what are you doing right now? And then, as well as, you know, what are your intentions for yourself? What do you actually want to achieve? And that's not what job do you want to have. It's what is your intention?
Why do you say, okay, why do you say job and intention? Can you define that for us? Because this is good.
Yeah, I think this whole realm of what title we want, and it's so funny because any job that I've ever had, I do way different tasks and duties and jobs than what the actual job description says. So, and I'm sure everybody can kind of agree to that. And you always think, you're like, wow, I did not realize I was a debt collector, or I was in charge of, planning party, all of the things. You're like, let me add it to my resume. But we
Right.
get so hung up on proving all of the check boxes that are on a resume that we forget that we can do other things outside of that will still impact our ability to do well at work and get another job, I guess.
Where do you get all your enthusiasm from, girl? Like, and I say that respectfully when I say girl, okay, hon? I really do, because I feel like I already know, I've known you for a long time. And it's really, really comforting. Anybody that comes into your space, they would just gravitate to that. They just eat it up. But where do you get all this enthusiasm from?
I mean, today I had a few cookies, so that probably helps my energy level. But I think there's so much room for doubt, and I am a doubter. I will hold myself to that. I definitely do fall into the traps of like, uh-oh, it's not for me. But I think when you get to actually have these conversations and talk about yourself, it's really liberating. It's liberating
Yes.
to look back and realize that, like, as much as I can go a couple of weeks without thinking about how far I've come, to really talk through what you're capable of doing and what you have done already, it's really cool to see that it's okay to be proud. It is okay to
Yes.
be, feel successful, and it is okay to know that you have a long way to go. And all of
That's right.
those things are so healthy. And so, I mean, we can call it enthusiasm, but I'm just very hopeful for everybody that they have just like unlocked potential, and they
Ooh.
just start showing it.
Oh my God, girl. Okay, all right. There I go again, girl. Genadyne. Wow, you are amazing. We'll be right back, guys. Future Prospects. We'll be right back with Genadyne Charr. Welcome back to Future Prospects with Genadyne Charr. Genadyne, wow. This show is so fitting for you right now, April. You know what I mean? When they're coming out of high school, going either into post-secondary, either taking a gap year, third semester, whatever. This is so informational, hon, so informational. I don't want to touch upon it too much because it's more about your story, but when you were within the jobs that you didn't, basketball, for instance, and now that you're working with MLSC, and you shared some pictures with us at the All-Star and then down at the Raptors court, when you stood there taking the picture, because this is a bit of a dream building here now for the youth, okay? How was that? Like, you love basketball, you played the baby, and I love the game. But you're just standing there and you're taking that picture and you look back at it and you go, wow, this is really happening. You know? How did that feel?
I mean, it was, I wish it was like that, but it was more like, okay, let's get off the court. Because I was so nervous, and I really don't like when I am like, look, we're standing in the middle of a court, and I was just like, it's time to go, like, no pictures. But that was actually a moment of realizing that my support system, the people that I was there with, they took a moment to say, like, take a breath, take this in, and take a picture when you have this opportunity. And I try not to do that, but when I look, I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I have that memory of All-Star Weekend and being down. And I get to look back and think like that's such a blessing. But I would say that is not what was going through my mind at the time. I was like, okay, that's enough. No more pictures, please. My paparazzi moment.
You're so humble, honest to God, because myself and Ron knows this. I love basketball. I really, really do. I love the sport. I think there's so many things that we can learn from basketball. Patience, losing, sports in whole general. So I just wanted to bring that to the picture. You and I had a conversation, and it was in Cookstown. And we shared something very, very dear to our heart. And I really want to bring this to light because I think it's important. And when you and I shared it, I said to myself, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew that she believed in God. And no matter what people want to call him, the universe or whatever, I call him by his name. And that's what shines with you, Genadyne. It really does. It resonated from you. And Sean looked at me and he goes, here we go. That's my hubby. And can you share that portion with me? Because you were really, really honest and open. And it's a good thing to share right now, especially with the times that we're in.
Yeah, we are talking about my faith, and I said that to you, and I believe in Jesus, and my faith is rooted in God and Christianity, and I think sometimes we get so like timid to share what we actually feel. We're at a time where it's a really great opportunity in the world to speak up on things that matter to us. But then there's also definitely always going to be this sense of fear or, try not to impose anything on anyone. But I think, again, going back to just being authentically yourself and being just who you are, unapologetically yourself is what I think I said earlier, is just, then there's no reason to feel weird about it. And so for me, my faith drives everything that I do. And so, the decisions that I make, the relationships that I how I care about people. So I try to let it show through. I mean, I do fall away from it sometimes and get really distracted, but I do try to push, that as my driving force.
Yeah, honey. Well, it really was very, how would I say, I'm trying to find these words here, it was really apparent that you had faith. And when I hit it, you went, oh, like this on the phone. And I talk about him all the time. I really talk about the Lord all the time because he's helped me through a lot of things. And young people right now, some of them are talking about it because how the world is today, they don't really, really know what's happening. In fact, I'm going to share something on the viewers right now. I received my vaccine. And it was just yesterday I received it. And it's amazing how young people are saying, oh my gosh, I really, really wish I had mine. And I'm standing there receiving mine, Genadyne, right? Yeah. And I'm standing there in the room and I wish there was a flood of young people around me taking it. And just the fear and the doubt and the stuff. Like, how has this been for you with this whole pandemic?
I've been very fortunate to have a job, to have a roof over my head, to have, consistent relationships and, projects to work on, all the things that would distract you, I think, from falling into that. But I would not say that it's been easy. I think I rode that first wave of, I think it would probably be 6 to 8 months of the pandemic of being like, I'm okay. Like I can't complain. And I would always say that to people, I can't complain. But only recently I started realizing that, wow, like my mental health is not, it's not great. Like I miss people. I miss being around others. I miss sharing stories. I miss like growing. And I feel like I have no memories and of this past year shared with anyone. I felt like I was just like floating blob in this universe. And so, yeah, I know it sounds so sad, but really, like, people and relationships, like we're not called to be alone on this earth. And so, and trust me, like I talk to God every day, but it's kind of lonely when nobody's responding. So like it's nice to have conversations. And so I just had to start realizing, okay, well, if this is how you're feeling, like, what are you going to do about it? And so the past, chunk of time, as much as it's really hard to just shake yourself. And so anyone listening, honestly, right now that is capable of just getting out of bed, that's a first start. And so good for you. That's huge. So congrats to you. But after that, it's like you get to start deciding, how who are the people around you, who, you know, how are you going to get through this? And so for me, it's been a lot of, I nag my family, I nag my friends, I call them, we set things up, even though I know they might not want to talk to me all the time. I know it's what I need, so I'm going to be a little
Yes.
selfish with that. But I also have to just own that. And I need to know that, like, if those are the things that make me happy, then I'm going to have to keep doing them. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with this lovely pandemic we're in.
Now, you used to go to an office, right?
Yes, I did.
All right. So now you're online.
Yes.
So how do you keep motivated? Because a lot of young people, right, they're online 24/7 with a professor or the teacher, and they're locked to that screen, and they run outside, not run, they walk outside, they do a little stuff, walk around, come back. But right now they're fatigued. So what tools or exercises that you have dealt with that you can share with them?
I mean, we can go back to what we were talking before, is like, how do you even feel like you're growing or networking or, you know, moving forward with your career or the things you want to achieve when
Right.
everything feels out of your control? That in itself is difficult. So for me, I've been really real on my calls. I will tell people what I'm doing, not just go through the motions of calling someone and be like, how are you? Let's get through an agenda. No, like, if I am cleaning my dishes, I'm going to tell them. And if I'm folding my laundry, I'm going to tell them. Like, if I have my little AirPods in, and I think that brings back that humanity that we used to be able to see before, when you would ask people, you know, as funny as it sounds, like, how's the weather? But like that matters, and it builds a different relationship rather than like getting through tasks on a call.
Yes.
So for me, I've been really good about like just being real. The other thing too is, like, I try to do as many video calls as I can, but it's so tiring, and to smile all the time, and like it does drain your energy. But I think when you again just bring that real reality back into it, if you don't want to put on makeup, then don't. And if you want to wear a sweatsuit, then just say that. Like, just say, hey, like, I'm comfy today. Like, I'm just, you know, having like a comfortable day, and call it out for what it is. I don't think there's this, I think what happens a lot and is we try to be on, you know, all the time to make these relationships mean something. I just think we just need to get back to being our real selves.
My God. So I'm gonna jump. Okay, that was awesome. Awesome. This is all awesome. But when you said trying to smile, like, I know with me, I smile all the time, but there's some days I don't feel like smiling. People automatically say to me, well, Joy, you're not smiling today, and already think something's wrong. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong. I just don't feel like putting on that grin. I just want to just, you know, and that's okay with that, but other people don't understand that. So how do you not smile and still get the message across?
I mean, I think it's just that you want to always reciprocate emotion, and you want to have, you know, especially if it's the first time meeting somebody. And when I think about this, I think about, you know, networking conversations. You want to put your best foot forward. And people always talk about this first impression, and
Yes.
I just don't think that's fair.
Why? Why?
Listen,
Why?
if you have seen my hair, this thing has a mind of its own, and it does not do well with first impressions. So if I relied on my first moment of meeting somebody, I'd be screwed.
Okay, let me jump in here for a second. Viewers, before I started the show, I shared this with Genadyne. This baby right now is changing different colors, and it's called gray. And I'm telling you, it was a lot of work to hide it and face it. And it was a lot of work. It really, really was. So you're teaching me here right now, honey. You are. Sorry, I had to say that.
Why? Like, this is a moment that we're sharing. And I think, you know, I mean, I do care about you, Joy. So I did put on some pants today. Like, I have some jeans on. I even stretched to jeans, which is a big jump. But I think there's this, you know, we are so worried that that's going to be our only moment. You know,
Yes.
well, why? Like, why does it have to be your only moment? Like, if you want to talk to the person again, then create a moment with them that you can then follow up with. Ask appropriate questions and say, like, hey, I actually enjoyed this conversation. Like, maybe we could chat again sometime. I think there's just like so much pressure with this virtual world. And
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of losing that like organic nature of things where you can just kind of like walk past somebody. But I think it's doable. We just have to own the reality that we're in.
Oh my God, girl, you're just amazing, honey. I want to jump onto something real fast. This is something totally off the grid here for a minute. It's going right back into the education, but I want to follow up with it in segment 4. If you would, when you look at the curriculum, in fact, I shouldn't say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask you this in the 4th segment, because if I start it now, it's going to be really, really long. I want you to think about that. Think about that, Genadyne. When you look at the curriculum, because we talked about this for the pre-interview, what would you love implemented? What could we do better? Okay, just think about that, hon. All right? We'll be right back, guys. Sorry?
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's a cliffhanger. That's right. All right, we'll be right back, guys. Future Prospects. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Future Prospects with Genadyne Charr. Genadyne, I left you with a cliffhanger, okay? What would you change with the curriculum? When you look at it on a whole, you walked it, you've gone through it, but now you work, you do your job. What would you change?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an educator. I only know from my own experience. And I know I touched on it earlier, just having to figure out my own class schedules and what I would be good at without even taking the course and knowing anything. I think, the biggest thing that I would love just more, I guess acceptance that it's okay to just try things and complete things. And then if that's not the end goal, you can do another thing. So just because you grew up wanting to be a doctor and then you finish that, I mean, maybe that's a bad example because they're in school for a very long time, but let's say you get through, 3 years of being in medical studies and you're doing your sciences and you realize, I want to switch. I think for me, it's just having this outlet, these voices within schools that I would love to see more ability for students to actually ask real questions. Like, okay,
Yes.
If I go this route, where will I end up? If I take these classes, like, what's my best option? And I don't think that, maybe I just had that experience, but I think there's just a better conversation about the options that you have, going into, if you want to be in a technician and you want to do, welding, whatever it may be, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. And I know the conversation has been changing. Maybe I'm aging myself a bit here, but
No, you're not.
I think that, I just think that we have so much more time than we really realize. And even if you were to do something and finish something in a program and you wanted to do that for a few years and go back to school, it should be applauded. It should be
right.
Talked about. And so I don't know if that's necessarily anything I would change about the curriculum, but I would love to just see more support for students, more outlets for them to talk about the realities of what kind of jobs are out there, because nobody knows what kind of jobs are out in sports, because I definitely didn't know. I thought you had to be an agent or a coach or a physiotherapist. And here I am in community relations and player development, and I was in sales before that. So I think it's just the education on what types of jobs would be great.
Wow. Something, even though you say I'm not an educator, it's called conversation, right? You've already gone through it, honey. So it qualifies you already to talk about your experience. So I applaud you, right? I really do. You've walked it. You know exactly what you're talking about. The questions that always come to me is that we have a son right now who's in university, and youth all the time engage in my conversation. They always say midterms work. It feels like they do one thing and all of a sudden they even have a chance to breathe. It's another thing. And it just keeps going. It's like you're on a train. And I feel like they're on a train that's just never ending. They don't have a chance to breathe. Ladies were posting on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, one of our past guests, and I can say her name, Amanda Valpado, she was saying she felt so stressed because it was midterm after midterm after midterm. And I had to respond back to her. And is there any, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I definitely remember it. I definitely remember feeling like I'm never going to get through this. I'm drowning. There was this endless nights, and I'm sure everybody that's in school right now has them, where they're like, this is never going to end and I'm going to fail everything. And why am I even doing this? I mean, I love the fact that I graduated. I love that I finished my degree, but I also think there's this balance, just like any job. Like once you get into, the workforce, it's going to be the same thing. And so, for example, my job comes in waves. Right now, it is so incredibly busy, and it feels as if I can't, there's not enough hours in the day. But, you just really need to understand who you are and what you need mentally and physically. And if that is, an hour walk in a day, or you like to read, you need to make sure that you're rewarding yourself throughout the day, because at the end of the day, you're going to look back on all of this like stress and you're not really going to remember it. So I would say, like, in those times, I would say eat the cookies, go for a walk, have a snack, call your friends, take a nap, do all the things that you feel guilty for, because you deserve them. You are working hard, but just know that the outcome, like as long as you pass and you're doing well and you're achieving what you ultimately wanted, then that's really what you're aiming for.
So if you just told us what you do for your outlet.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I actually just cut out sugar from my diet like last month, and now that I'm back onto sugars, I love sugar. I do.
So do you bake your own cookies? Because you mentioned it 2 or 3 times throughout this whole show.
I do. I haven't baked in a while because I find that I've baked too many, and then I live alone. So I bought little like Kisses the other day, those chocolate, and I ate through the entire bag, and I was like, oh, who ate all the chocolates? Like, I ate all the chocolates.
Oh my God. You're a sweetheart, honey. Love your honesty. All right, back to you, pretty girl. Back to Genadyne Charr. You've told us your whole life story. You've given us pearls of wisdom that we can take away and apply. But now, what is your next chapter? I know you're working, but where is it you want to go? Like, what's your roadmap?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. And I think that it has come to a point in my life where I am so confident in saying that. I used to think that saying that would then therefore imply that I'm not prepared, or I'm not ready, or somebody's going to think that I don't care. And I do care. I am prepared. I am skilled. I have a story. I just don't know. And I think there's so much power in being able to own that internally and being able to say it out loud. I really struggled for a while with, this idea of the difference between being complacent and being content. And I was like, well, I can't just, stay in one place forever. It's like, no, that's okay. It's okay to own the moment you're in. And it's okay to just be there and be content, be okay with what you're growing through. It's just not okay to be complacent. And so you just have to be constantly growing in other aspects. Yeah.
Why? Okay, I'm gonna jump in there. Why is it not good to be complacent? Why?
Yeah, like complacency is scary, because I think that is when you start giving up yourself. You've now kind of told yourself that you don't matter. You don't deserve to grow. You don't deserve to, want more. And being complacent is just you saying like, okay, I'm just going to stay here because this is where I'm comfortable. And it's one thing to be comfortable, but you really need to understand like your why, your intentions for being in that moment. So I just never want to be complacent. I definitely am at a place of contentment right now.
My God, girl. Woo! You got to do something with this speaking, girl. You really, really do. I tell a lot of my guests, but it's the honest to God truth. How do you deal with failure?
Oh, I cry a lot. I love crying. I think it's like,
you do?
Yeah, I I think it's like the best release of energy. I don't know if anyone else feels that
No,
way.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
like I think I just like really allow myself to like own that like moment of like, oh, this sucks. Like this,
Release.
yeah. And so yeah, I definitely start there. But I think, failure is just so, it's more so for me defined with what you do with the next step. I failed at
Right.
so many things, and I think people always talk about, okay, well, is it really failure if what kind of goals did you set? You get to decide, but like failure still sucks. Not getting a job, not like failing an exam, literally anything, getting broken up with, it sucks. Like failure sucks. I think it's what you choose to do afterwards, or
Yeah.
how you choose to hold yourself and carry yourself through it. And I think again, ownership, like own your feelings, own them, talk about them, don't try to hide from them and be, I always pretend like I'm so strong, and I'm not. Like I'm sad sometimes, and I'm, whatever the emotions are. But I think failure is that now, okay, I failed at that. I'm not a failure. I failed. Now what?
Say that again. Say that again, really slowly and clearly.
Like a
That
rope?
is very important. Say it again, honey.
They said, I am not a failure. I failed, but I am not a failure.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy to get so self-absorbed into,
Yeah.
Ourselves. And I know that's probably a smack in the face, but I want to say that, like, it's not about you. It's not about, like this moment that you're in. It's about the big picture. And like, you are perfectly and wonderfully made the way you are. And I think when we start taking that away and saying like, I'm a failure, you're stripping yourself from this, like, yeah, oh, this blessing that you are. So no, it's a situation, it will pass. And then you just get to make better choices in the future.
You got it, honey. What do you love about yourself when you look in the mirror, Genadyne? When you look in the mirror, that beautiful hair. Like if my hair got curly, and it gets curly, but in a different way, I wish you could just part like that and just flop, because I would do all sorts of great things with it, right? But I am blessed. I am blessed too. But when you look in the mirror, hon, I know what I see, but what do you see?
I mean, yeah, my hair is really cool. I try not to actually like focus too much on it. I used to get so scared thinking that was the only cool thing about me, and I would get so stressed about it. I would say, I mean, I like my smile. I did pay a lot for it, so I haven't really been able to like show it because of my like having to wear a mask all the time. But
Yeah.
I would just say that, yeah, I like that when when I'm really channeling like my best version of myself, the one that God's like calling me to be, and the one that he's like created me to be, that feels good. And that's an energy that I feel like I do give off. And I know that when I realize that it's not because of me, it's because of, my faith and what God's done for me, that makes me very happy.
Beautiful, sweetie. One word, just one sentence I'd like you to leave with our viewers before I let you go, pretty girl.
That's so much pressure.
So much pressure. What words of wisdom? Like what quote? Like what would you like to say before I let you go real fast?
I would say comparison is the thief of joy would be my one-liner.
Say it again real fast.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
You got it, girl. Give me the heart, sweetheart. Yay! Love you, Genadyne. Thank you, honey.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.